hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. An absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Maybe you could just kick off with a brief introduction, kind of who you are and, you know, this very amazing mix of art forms that you kind of employ in your work.
Yeah, my name is Livia Rita, and I originally, well, I went through different art forms along the way, but now at the moment I mainly make music, but I create the visuals to the music also myself. So somehow I was like, oh, I'm gonna make music and focus on music, and then I get these other ideas with the visuals or the art fashion or the world the song is in, and I get very, very distracted from the music. So the music is a very slow process because I keep getting distracted. Yeah, so I end up doing this like multi-disciplinary shows and practice that is quite all-encompassing and quite multidisciplinary, and I think also quite overwhelming for a lot of people. Yeah, so I'm starting to embrace that more and more now, and I start to also feel like starts to be a bit of a platform for that, or it kind of, maybe it's also just because these things grow into each other and interweave into each other that it starts to feel like one thing again. Yeah, and that's now I'm kind of embracing these different disciplines coming together.
And can you tell us a bit about your background and how you kind of came to this point now? Because I believe you sort of grew up in kind of the Swiss Alps, where perhaps, you know, these sorts of art forms weren't really, you know, being taught or weren't, you know, available to you, the sorts of platforms that you might have in you know, other cities like London. So tell us a bit how you got from there to here.
Yeah, I don't know how I got it into my head that I wanted to study musical when I was actually young. I loved singing, dance. We went like once a year, we went to the city to watch a musical. And I remember the moment I was like in tears after Les Miserables. And I was like, I want to be able to one day move people. Like I got moved in that theater. So yeah, I kind of decided a little bit secretly. My parents kept like putting me this example of this like of other failed artists who couldn't manage their life, and then, you know, all these kind of prejudices and so on. But yeah, I kind of I then did 1 year of fashion in Zurich. Kind of learned to make patterns and these kind of things. And then I found I really wanted to go to London, but it was just not possible at that point, kind of to go there by airplane. I think that would have just been like a no, for sure not. Yeah, because I grew up in a little village. Sorry, I start there, maybe in the mountains. It's a little bit far away, but it's a very dreamy, very beautiful place, a very protected, very much a bubble in a valley. Yeah, you don't see very far. You have kind of these mountains around you, so you don't really have a realistic relationship with the world outside. It's kind of just all behind this hill, and you can kind of dream what is there. Yeah, anyway, so then after fashion, I wanted to do entrance exams in London. I don't know why I wanted to go to London. I guess it's a dream of musical. It's the place for musical. Yeah, and then I saw these, I was like, oh, if I go to Paris, there's this Eurostar, and then I can do entrance exams in London. And somehow Paris felt like more realistic. So yeah, I kind of actually lied to my parents. I said I have an internship in Paris, but all I had is like, I saw an advertisement online about someone having a apartment to give away for too much money, and I just wrote them, I'm interested, and they said, oh, you can stay for free the first night. And I told my parents I have an internship in Paris. So yeah, I just left to Paris. And then the lady liked me and gave me like a little spare guest room they had. And then there I started training dance. And yeah, I was obviously 19. I was in ballet lessons with like little girls. They were like, that was a little bit, I think, strange. But then I didn't really continue with ballet. I just went more towards contemporary stuff. And yeah, I did entrance exams in London. I didn't really succeed anywhere except at East 15. They have a contemporary course, which is a bit more about devising and making theatre. And I think there, yeah, because technically I was nowhere, but I think one could maybe see the joy or the want to express, and somehow that was enough for there to get in. So I became like a theatre maker and a theatre performer, and kind of like an actress to a degree. Yeah, and then I tried to get, after acting school, tried to get jobs. I did like, I had some things went well, but I think my accent is weird to place. And I think this kind of process of, yeah, it just didn't lie me. I just didn't feel like I fitted into these roles. And yeah, and then I wrote lots of emails. I think I spent weeks doing emails, lists, researching, sending out. And then I got this Barbican Open Lab actually in London. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, someone is interested in my ideas. Yeah, and that's how it started. That's the kind of 1 week of rehearsing and working my own ideas. And then obviously all this time I just loved singing, I loved moving, I loved making my own clothes. And that's kind of when it started to have like, yeah, in London I guess one really needs a space to be able to do that. Yeah, and I got given that space and that kind of trust, and that's when I started dreaming that I could do my own thing. And I really loved bringing people together and inviting my friends to the space, and we would, yeah, that's how it started. And since then I've been doing my own shows. A lot of it has been very DIY, like kind of trying to shoot a music video before we do the show in the evening so we can do music videos. Yeah, and this set as well is kind of, it's just been absolute, I've been so excited about this because this is also the first time that I can kind of do, yeah, have this kind of platform, have this kind of support, have this kind of support team. So I'm really enjoying this, really grateful.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about, Sadler's Wells wildcard kind of program, which I believe, you've got 2 nights that are happening next week. So, what opportunity does that mean to you, to have that platform, and what have you decided to do with it? What's the concept behind your Futura Glitch performances?
Yeah, so I guess my instinct tends to be a little bit maximalist. I think I have this like hunger to feel a lot of emotions and to get absorbed in other worlds. So that's, I guess, was probably my first thought, is like, how can I make something transformative, something people can dive into and get seduced into, and go beyond like their normal headspace, that they kind of get just into like drawn in a way that it just becomes a physical, a sensory and emotional experience. I think that's what I'm after. Yeah, and I mean, I have this debut album that's coming in July, which is called Fuga Futura. And this is kind of has been the base of my work exploration for the last 4 years. I've been working on it for 4 years. Back then it was just lyrics and very cringy songs. Since then it has become more tasteful, less cheesy. Yeah, and that's also the base for this evening. It's kind of these songs kind of grew a bit into a world. I started to build the world around these songs. I started to build an identity, like a game card for every one of these songs. So every song is a creature. And the evening is very much made in a way that at the beginning, when people arrive, there is this coven, there's this mystic fun park where they can like interact with these characters or interact with these spells. And I invited some amazing people who will do like interactive one-to-one bits with the audience. So it's really about kind of, with them, it was very much interweaving their own practice, which often has something to do with rituals or herbs or spell making or writing, and with this kind of Futura world and the creatures that I sent them. So they're going to be like little entrance points, like little portals, or where you can get stimulated or prepared for or trained for what comes into space. So they just have some ideas, some words, some senses. They get personal smell as well distributed. So when they enter the space, we kind of have this reveal of this like Futura glitches, so different apparitions and different creatures of Futura come. So hopefully people will come in and then kind of dive into Futura. Then we have a creepy break where we meet the alter egos of creature in a little horror cabinet. And then we go back in, and then it becomes more about cross-pollinating reality with Futura. And then that's kind of a big question mark, and depending on the audience how it ends, whether people join and whether we really cross-pollinate everyone's energy. But in the end, it's kind of like I think very much a seduction into Futura, and they're invited in, and there is no clear limit of where we are performing and where the audience is. It's kind of just this subtle invite, subtle seduction that is aiming to make people feel rewilded, or kind of also be entangled with nature, with other identity, with the mystic. Transformed a little bit. Hopefully.
And, you know, if you've done something very similar in the past, or is this kind of a bit experimental for you? And do you ever meet any kind of resistance? I mean, I know like the British, for example, are notorious for being a bit reserved, and you sort of throw them into these scenarios where you need to kind of let loose of your inhibitions and, you know, fully immerse yourself in order to kind of really appreciate the art form or the production. So, you know, how do you expect that people might react?
So the first question, I've done similar, like it is really based on something I've been working for a while. So I think I have this trust in that kind of, it's cohesive, and it really grew like patiently and with a lot of work. So I think the ground of it, I feel kind of, I feel prepared for. But then there are some new things that, as you said, like are going to be like kind of the risky factors in the space, which I'm also excited about. And that's definitely more of this kind of multisensory immersive part that like we really invite the audience to join in, like, because we used to perform more in like concert venues or gig venues, and there usually it's not like possible to move the PA system, or so this kind of really immersive concert setting, it's been really hard to do. I've been dreaming of it for a while, but this is the first time that we will really have such an immersive space without a front and a back, really. So I think there's some challenges, like how will the audience behave, which we will only learn tonight, which is exciting. Will the audience participate, and how can we entice them to participate? So these are definitely things I'm trying out for the first time. And the other thing that's also a bit of a first time is to be able to invite like kind of this curational call out that comes with the wildcard, like to kind of invite other perspectives. I've done that in many ways, but not in such an intricate way, and not with like being able to invite like, you know, the artists of one's dreams, which I was able to do here a little bit. So there's like a bit more weight on other people's inputs, which feels like a little bit scary for me, because I can't control, and I'm sometimes scared, oh, maybe then we'll feel completely out of place. But this, we have some time allocated next week. And how will the audience react to this? And the resistance is, I think it's about making it in a way that it works anyway, and it's just an invite, and if people join, I'm going to be so happy, and everyone will be so happy. But I've definitely encountered resistance. I've done this like chairlift fashion show during Corona, because obviously when people are on chairlifts, it's like you're forced to social distance. So it was something that kind of fitted Corona. That was in my village, in the valley. There's like this old ski lift, chairlift. And for example, there it was like, this doesn't belong here. Like there were a lot of voices. I think the society was like split, whether half of them I think were offended that I brought like kind of models and art fashion that is nothing to do with the tradition of the valley, beyond like gender binaries and all these things, and we were flying on this chairlift. I think that offends people, unfortunately, still, because even though we didn't hurt. So, but this is the only like moment of like resistance I felt in my work so far. Otherwise, with the audience, I think I just don't project any expectations. But I'm curious. This is only start of experiment. I think it's also really nice for future work and concerts to not be like obviously participatory and like, oh, now clap your hands. Like I think I search for maybe a slightly deeper entanglement, but we will go like on tour. We go on UK tour after, with like a merge table that is not just a merge table, but that is also this coven concept, so that it becomes more interactive, and then maybe also concerts can become a bit more interactive. We have this Futura dance step. Sorry, this sounds maybe a bit cheesy. I got warned. But it's a Futura dance step that we teach people actually before. It's like a dance challenge. And we would love people to dance it with us at the end. I don't want to shy anyone away, no pressure. But this is something that I think I want to keep trying out, and I'm sure not everyone feels okay with it, and that's completely fine. That's completely fine. I really understand that sometimes we just want to be passive, and they have the right to just be passive in there and just enjoy sucking in without having to worry about anything else. So that's fine too.
Well, you've definitely sold it to me. I absolutely want to be there now, because this all sounds really fascinating. And, you know, do you think kind of, because, you know, all this kind of stuff, and I was like watching some of your videos and things like that, like it's very much pushing the boundaries of, you know, I think there's still that sense sometimes that everything needs to be in a particular box, you know, oh, this is ballet, oh, this is contemporary dance, oh, this is theatre. And even if it's kind of slightly interactive, usually it sort of fits in those categories. And there are still some people out there, or even, you know, you go to some places, you know, they want to hold on to those traditions. So do you feel that you are pushing boundaries, and do you think that that's something that needs to happen, you know, within the art world? Otherwise we're, you know, we're never going to progress, we're never going to kind of find new corners in it of creativity.
Yeah, I mean, actively, personally, I don't like, I mean, this is kind of what happened organically, without like the intention of like forcibly pushing boundaries, but I obviously love this feeling of, or I'm kind of attracted to the future, or anything that feels new to myself. So I guess that has organically led me maybe to something that I feel like I haven't seen before, even though I'm sure people have done similar, loads of similar things. But I think I'm very attracted by this feeling. So yeah, I have, I think, the original drive behind really wanting to do that, and not like getting too absorbed into, you know, what the boundaries are out there. But then I guess the day one searches for, I mean, I can't do this alone in a room. I need partners, I need opportunities and platforms. And I think that's where I do notice sometimes that, yeah, there are a lot of closed doors still. And it's just kind of ridiculous, because the art forms, I mean, for me, they grew like into one thing, like they're so related. If someone sings something or in a music venue, or says it in a theater, it's so similar. But obviously these rooms, the spaces have so different like prejudices or different attitudes or expectations of people going there. Yeah, so yeah, definitely, I think a lot of people, when for example, in music, I just don't ever mention the word theater or dance. Dance is kind of okay, but it's otherwise it's just like, we only do music. Like it's kind of like hard, I think, to be taken seriously, or that you are actually a musician and you can make good music that can be played on the radio if you also do the other things. I think you're just not really taken seriously. I've noticed that. Yeah, and then I guess there's this, yeah, so I think some people's or they see it and they're like, I don't understand it immediately, so no, or it looks like a lot of work, because it's, yeah, but we are kind of flexible and can adapt to spaces. So really, I felt like we kind of completely have to adapt to spaces, rather than spaces being open and like, oh yeah, we're flexible, we can. But there were obviously some exceptions, like there were some open doors, and I really appreciated those, because yeah, we're not so easy to understand immediately on one side what we are exactly going to do. So it needs a little bit more of trust. And yeah, but I think definitely like there's so much potential in these art forms coming together. It felt like, to me, it's really really hard to do something new just in dance, or something, sorry, that feels new in dance or feels new in music. But I felt like there was so much excitement or curiosity for me in the combination. I felt like I did quicker encounter things that felt new to me, or that felt exciting to me. So I think there's a lot of potential in that combination to play with. It's like not having like separate toys to like take apart and be put together, but to have different toys to then start, like, yeah, it's just like there's lots of possibilities, but lots of playground, and I think lots of possibilities to go into new places with new things, like to go into music places and meet and have music audience that maybe gets introduced to dance. Or so I think it's kind of yeah, there's a lot of potential. I kind of cursed it at some point as like, oh, why am I doing this thing in between? It doesn't fit anywhere. And you know, also, I mean, in some of the funding, when it's like in arts council, it's okay, but sometimes it's really these categories, and then no one takes you seriously. Everyone kind of smiles at you, this crazy all rounder or whatever. So yeah, I do feel that, but I think it's changing, and I think it's starting to be more celebrated, especially in the kind of female pop world. It feels like it's coming, this kind of visual focus that comes with also with the medias, I guess, the way they are and so on. I think it's starting, something I curse starts to become a strong point, and I'm grateful. Yeah.
And maybe you could just mention some of the themes that you think emerge from your work. You know, it seems like, you know, like kind of nature, you know, this idea maybe from disconnecting from reality, like utopia versus dystopia. And also maybe some of your influences. I mean, sometimes like watching and listening to some of your music, like people like Bjork come to mind. Also, you know, the pop artist Aurora. So, you know, do you see yourself like paralleled with any other kind of artists or take influence?
The first question was
like the themes, yeah.
Themes, yeah. Yeah, so I think the song started very much just incorporating the essences of some emotions I felt was, I guess, and they still do. I think it's like a little bit of a circle of the emotions that I think I'm capable of feeling. They kind of all found a home in there for my last like couple of years. And yeah, so it's been very much like a quest of getting to know myself and trying to become myself and not someone I don't want to be, or someone who's not healthy or something. Yeah. Yeah, and I think so that like loads of different themes came in, like that's from yeah, and I think along this quest of search, being on that search and trying to kind of find the essence of like, let's say it's like a grow up album for Futura, essentially, like, right? Yeah, and on that search, I guess I definitely started to go home. I left home as soon as I could. Just want to go to the city where the people are. And I think as in this kind of journey, I started to reconnect because the whole climate strike came up as well. Start to reconnect with like kind of the nature and the landscape I came from, and I started to find a lot of answers with nature in nature. And I found like an organic practice place was like actually singing outside. It always felt like I have to sing against this wall now and annoy my neighbors. And yeah, it's suddenly somehow like I did really find nature to be like wanting to be like an active player in the practice. And I'm still like thinking about that a lot. Yeah, so I think definitely this kind of relationship with nature is central as a theme. I think definitely like identity politics. We kind of identify as creatures within the Futura world, which obviously is kind of beyond societal like genders and sexualities. It's kind of a liberation from that, and like kind of trying to enact our future utopia, gender utopia. Yeah, and then it really crosses through all these emotions. I think love is always really central to it from A to Z. Love, loneliness. I mean, it has all. It has depression, it has fantasy as an escape, the need for escape. It has a lot of anxieties in there. Yeah, quite a full spectrum of themes. But the future is kind of just like, I guess, an overall theme in the sense of it's the platform on which I project all of this. So it allows me to make something else out of those emotions that is a bit more fantastical than the kind of only down to earth realness of these emotions. Yeah.
And in terms of influences or other artists that you would see yourself kind of in the same vein as?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I definitely, I mean, two people that I got really influenced and that I actually had it as mentors at some point. One was Lindsay Kemp. And Lindsay Kemp worked with David Bowie, I think, back when, and was this like mime artist who worked with costumes and movement and created like every movement on stage had to be very meaningful. Yeah, and they kind of worked a lot with costumes, and that was definitely a huge influence. And then I did see Lee Anderson's performance at the V&A Museum, where they worked with dancers and costumes, and there the movement was really influenced by the costume. And I think this kind of cross-pollination of working with fashion and dance, I definitely was like, this is how I can use my fashion skill and movement to create this identity. So that definitely also helped me to see on my path of finding my practice. And then I worked with actually Brave New Worlds with Valentina, and she introduced me to the Le Coq practice, like Commedia dell'arte, where they work with masks, and the mask changes how one moves. And if that moment of illusions happens, where one believes this person is transformed, that's the magic on stage. So yeah, these were definitely influences. And then in the pop world, I mean, there are a lot of amazing women that I think led the way, and that I observe, and I kind of, I think, get inspired by for sure. And I mean, Björk, I think, I don't know why this is like the immediate association that happens. I think I do like her singing style because it feels like it's like a bit outside of the typical singing genres where like certain people do it like through these decorations and stuff. I think it's quite raw, and I really like the rawness of Björk's voice. And obviously she's also kind of very much kind of connected to nature in her practice. So I think that's kind of where the association happens as well sometimes, and some kind of dreamy creaturey or insecty visuals. So yeah, I understand. And I do like Aurora's what is it? The dreaminess of Aurora, the illusion or the floatiness. Yeah, but I try not to think about it too much, or get too directly inspired by these artists who are creating at the same time. But I think they're, yeah.
Well, fantastic. I think I'm out of time, but it's been such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me. And yeah, hopefully I can get down to the show, and I hope lots of other people will be able to as well. I think it's already sold out, but you know, people get to experience it because it sounds like it's going to be wonderful. And of course, look out for your album. I think it's coming in July. Is that right?
Yeah, it's coming on 28th of July, and we're doing actually a show then again also in London where we actually do a very similar show to Sadler as well. So I guess
fantastic.
you can catch us
another opportunity. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy the rest of your rehearsals, and best of luck for performances next week. Lovely to chat to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
Thanks
Cheers.
so
Bye.
much.
Bye. Bye.